What gets you out of bed in the morning? Is it your career, your family, or is there something else pushing you forward? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first official episode of the GLOBIS Stories podcast. I'm your host, W. Tanner Kirk. In this episode, I sit down with On Marome, Manager of Business Development and Student Recruitment here at GLOBIS. As two expats who have found our careers and second home here in Japan, we discuss everything from growing up on anime to going to college in Tokyo and finding our life's purpose, or Kokorozashi, abroad.
Hello, Tanner.
Hello, On. Thank you very much for joining us for our first episode of the GLOBIS Stories podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, On, before you started your career at GLOBIS, you have successfully started, launched, built, grew, and then moved on from several companies. So what is it like to start a company from scratch? I'm interested to hear starting something completely from scratch, building it, and then moving on to the next thing, because you've done this several times.
Sure thing. So different companies definitely was originated in a different kind of environment, different kind of objective. A couple of them was just more like a small, medium enterprise restaurant. So that was mainly my own vision. A few of them was under a bigger corporate umbrella, which is a joint venture and stuff like that. So I think the most important thing is to really understand why you do what you do, but also you can translate your own vision to really match the bigger direction of whether it's the corporate visions or just focusing on yourself. So building things from scratch is always pretty daunting because it's really all about the resource allocation. You have all the things, but you also have nothing. At the same time, it's really about the choices, how to shuffle and allocate things around. So with that, there's nothing impossible if you would just spend a little bit more capitals here, spend more time there, and in that sense, I really enjoy that kind of sort of allowing the creativity, allowing the impossible to happen.
Right.
But definitely, every product has its life cycle, and our life, go through different changes, meeting, different opportunities at times. So, saying goodbye to a few things so that you can grow as a business professional, and the business can go off, further in its own way was difficult at first, but I have come to terms that this is really great as part of the growth for everybody. So saying bye was also difficult at first, but in general, I learned a lot from it.
Nice. So the first business you built was a restaurant.
Yes, restaurants and
Was this in
people
Thailand?
hung out. It was in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Right.
What kind of restaurant was it?
Right. So it's a little bit restaurants and with a few drinks that all those in the community could hang out, come and then just catch up
Nice.
with each other. So I wouldn't say it's a very big scale kind of business. It was there to serve very
Right.
specific purpose and serve just that very specific community.
What community?
It was a lot of tourists and a few exchange students in the area. So in that sense, you really focused on making sure you can make customer experience
Right.
really, really excellent, and a little bit on the spreadsheet trying to control cost. But other than that,
that's
it was a good experience to start something on small scale first. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I feel like that's quite the challenge. Before I came to Japan, I actually worked as a cook. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I
So,
did. Hear
yeah.
a little bit about that. What kind of I don't know, signature or specialization did you have?
I cooked mostly like Mediterranean food, like Italian and Greek food,
wow.
but I also worked at an izakaya in Philadelphia for a
Wow.
year.
Wow.
So I cooked Japanese food, and that's actually part of what inspired me to move to
Wow.
Japan. But yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize you were a restaurateur.
Oh,
in your
right.
past.
Well, definitely we were much more focused on the beverage part.
The drinks, yeah. So was it more of an
Right.
izakaya?
It was more like a bistro bar, let's
Okay,
say.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
food was very minimal,
Small plates.
small, yeah, easy, reheated a few stuff.
Okay.
But overall, the product was not the beverage or your food. The product was the
Right.
environment that everybody could,
A community.
come in and be part of. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome.
Right.
So you started the restaurant or the bar, and
Mm.
then when did you know that it was like time to move on?
So I think any entrepreneurs can relate to this. No matter how much love or passion that you have toward, let's say, your baby or your product or your solutions, there are definitely times that there you tend to focus more on the downs than the ups.
Sure.
Very challenging times, all the adversities, and stuff like that. So specifically talking about the restaurant business,
Yeah.
it requires you to pay attention, meaning open the restaurants every day. And of course, at that time, I didn't have enough business knowledge. Was still very young, and also the nature of the restaurant is you have to stay open until you get the customers to walk in.
Sure.
Otherwise, you never know how the business is going to go. So at one point, I was having some low revenue cycles that were required to cut a little bit of the cost down, whereas the biggest cost it's the manpower. So I would want to go in and work by myself every day, and at the end it became a little bit of a repetitive, tiring
Sure.
cycles that I had to be there. I had to keep it open. I want to take a rest, but what if the customers come in and not seeing us open?
Right.
So I had a little bit of those periods that I felt like this is a very difficult, business to maintain. But that wasn't the end of why I exited the business. There was also other serendipity.
Sure.
Many. Someone with more resources, someone with different ideas to make it even bigger to grow.
Right.
And then timing-wise, I also had other opportunities in a different city. So I sold it kind
Right.
of approach. But overall, it's not a failure to
Sure.
move on. Yeah.
Sure.
In that sense, that's why that's the takeaway that I got.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important lesson that I think, like you said, the analogy of like a baby, a lot of the time business owners or anybody, like we're creatives, you work on a project and you care about it so much, but if you don't have like that spark or passion for it anymore, it can really like start to bring you down if you feel like attached to it.
Right. And I think a lot of serial entrepreneurs, they have different places or outlets to channel their passions,
Sure.
right, to multiple places. So sometimes they're already excited about different things, and they think this is in the phase that they can give it to someone who can focus more on efficiency,
Right.
scaling,
Right.
and things like that. So I was at that phase where I feel like I was ready to learn something new,
Right.
Work on something new, but. Yeah, it's never about the solution. It's more about what do you want to serve, what kind of pain point you want to release. Yeah, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So we're both foreigners, obviously. We're both members of the foreign community here in Tokyo. And you started your business ventures in Tokyo. So once you've already moved to Japan. So I want to reverse time just a little bit. What brought you to Japan originally from Thailand?
Right. So talking a little bit about my background, I did an exchange program during my high school year. Actually, I went to the U.S.
Okay.
Just a year in a regular high school
nice.
On the West Coast. It's a couple hours away from Seattle. The town is called Gig Harbor. But growing up, I was in a pretty, conservative, a little more strict side, all-girl school growing up in Bangkok anyway.
Okay.
So that first experience sort of really opened up, more information,
Mhm.
diversities, and different kind of experience to me. So when I returned to Thailand
Right.
to finish up my high school, I was pretty adamant about wanting to, go abroad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right. Again, also back to, very strict school was a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
I was having a hard time, when you saw something, when you saw how things can be done differently, it can be
Totally.
hard, to convince yourself to do things the same again. So I was searching for a lot of options, and then Japan at the time
Mhm.
um, was during the period that quite a few both private and public universities were giving out a lot of scholarships to support students in Southeast Asia.
Mhm.
And then I applied to a couple, and I got a scholarship from many of the audience might know is Ritsumei Kang Asia Pacific University,
Mm.
which is down in the Kyushu Island,
Right.
pretty far.
I love
The city
Kyushu.
is called Beppu,
Yeah.
which has great reputation for like onsen,
Yeah, absolutely.
tourism, and that's how I never left Japan.
Right.
So I came to Japan, and it was a great opportunity because I think it was one of the very early period that Japan opened up more to the global community. The university was going to teach everything in English, but they were also having the requirement that you have to study Japanese,
Sure.
as part of the scholarship criteria, as part of the grades during the university year. So I would say I was very well protected as an exchange student, but also those curious exchange students who want to learn more about Japan, but gradually,
Sure.
during those 4 years.
Sure.
So that how I, arrived. But also, of course, I
Yeah.
watched lots of animation,
Right. Yeah.
all the manga, and coming from Southeast Asian countries, Japanese culture is just part of our way of life. So I wouldn't say that I am not a Japan lover and then received this opportunity. I said it was, I watched Doraemon and,
Sure.
Shinjang growing up,
Sure.
and Japan was just part of, what I could imagine as a next, destination.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually came to Japan for the first time just after high school, and I had a really similar experience. But I guess, unlike you, I had never left the Philadelphia area where I'm from before I went to Japan. So Japan was my first experience abroad ever. Yeah,
What did that feel
and
like?
it was crazy. I mean, I felt very similar. It's like, there's a whole wide world out there.
Right,
You grow up in your one spot, like for you, Thailand, or for me,
The
East
ocean is so
Coast.
big.
The ocean is so
Yeah.
big. I remember putting my feet in the, I went to Zushi Beach, and I remember like standing in the ocean and thinking that I was in the Pacific Ocean because Philadelphia is against the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm in a whole different ocean. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, obviously Japan is culturally so much different from America and the West, but I think like you growing up, obviously I watched anime. I think most foreigners who come to Japan have some sort of interest or some sort of introduction to Japan in that way.
Did you watch any anime though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Naruto?
I think I was probably, yeah. That's like Naruto and Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
I think especially for young boys of my generation, our generation, like Dragon Ball Z in America was the big thing. And I think that's actually how I first found out that Japan was a place. Because like American cartoons are mostly comedy based, right? And they're for kids. But anime, like Dragon Ball Z, for
Has
like being a little kid, yeah, it's a serialized story, but also they're fighting, and it felt way more mature and intense. So I remember as a little boy, that's like a very, it was like a mind-blowing experience for me.
All right.
Yeah.
That you pointed out a very great point because I had both Japanese cable TV, but also Cartoon Network at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I remember with Cartoon Network, I would just go on the channel watching it from any point of time because it's broken down into smaller episodes. I don't really need to worry much about the connected
Exactly. Yeah.
sequence of stories.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Definitely. So, Japanese culture was part of, us growing up unknowingly.
That's interesting. We actually got anime on Cartoon Network in America. So that's where I first
really?
saw Dragon Ball Z was on Cartoon Network.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So,
interesting.
I think a lot of people watching and listening,
Yeah,
right, might
right.
not be in Japan yet. I think, or for a lot of people coming to Japan is a big dream of theirs.
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of people, it can feel impossible.
Yeah.
Or I know when I talk to other people that I know from back home, it's like the most amazing thing in the world. And I remember when I was transitioning to coming to Japan, it did feel quite difficult. But now looking back on it, it's like, oh yeah, you can just come. Of course you can do it. So I guess what is your advice for people who live maybe in Southeast Asia or anywhere that
Right.
really want to come here but feel like it's this big hurdle they need to overcome?
Right. Japan as the country, I think it has progressed so much and be much more friendly to foreigners. The technology really, speeds up your learning curve. 15 years ago, I would need to, open the paper dictionary. Right.
Yeah.
Or they had something digital, definitely. But
Right.
it was definitely nothing like those AI boosted, right?
Sure.
Translation and things like that. So I would say if you have the will, just leverage, things around you and not be too afraid. But this is more of the mental barrier that we create. And it is not only about moving country, but about changing job or going to the next phase of your life, becoming parents. And you just need to understand what your goal is and then build smaller milestones and then commit to that. Yeah, but for moving countries in general, I think there's just really a big charm about getting yourself immersive in a different culture, things that it provokes your curiosity of things that you take for granted.
Absolutely.
And then you become to really appreciate, things that you used to have, and you try to make sense of things that people in that country take for granted. And I think, it doesn't have to be like permanent relocation, but travel, could probably do the same impacts. So definitely understand why, and I think the how will eventually follow. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
I like that too. It's common advice that can be applied to a lot of things, but it's like one step at a time. Because I think if you look at the entire process of moving countries, it gets very overwhelming. But there's always something to handle first before you get to the next thing. So just take it one step at a time.
And similar to those who, have that hidden desire, I want to do something I want to start something on my own, opening a business at the end, but like, how do I start? When do I start? One step at a time is a great advice, because if you take, compared to taking 99% risk, maybe you will feel more comfortable taking 50% risk. So you take time to build, whatever that you need to feel more secured. You take language classes. Maybe you try to secure some jobs first before moving, or coming as a student first before becoming, the professionals and things like that. So just you're not gonna totally get rid of it, but you can understand what triggers those kind of concerns and try to eliminate a few things. Slow, one step at a time, as you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking about taking things one step at a time, growing businesses, having an international life, really. Here at GLOBIS, you're the head of student recruitment.
Right.
But you've also launched our hub in Thailand. And you also helped launch GLOBIS Philippines, right?
Right. Both hub campuses.
Both hub campuses. So what, and for listeners who might not be aware, the hub campuses are basically just international branches of GLOBIS where you can go and study at GLOBIS abroad.
Right.
So what was it like coming to Japan, building your career here as a Thai woman, and then being asked by GLOBIS to help build a hub campus in your home country?
Right, definitely. So so after college, I was involved in a few business projects, established a few companies along the way, and at one point I was, also involved in HR solution recruitment businesses. So it opened my eyes to, solutions that really help people changing their life, through their career, so on and so forth. And it came to me at the end, also my personal, experiences with marriage or being a parent. And then I ended up, going through a little bit hiccups, and now I am a single parent to my daughter. I think knowledge is an asset that no one can ever take away from you, and
Absolutely.
when there are and also the purpose of things and your passion is also something that no one can never take away from you. So at one point I had that realization that, even though I have no capitals, even though I have no one that I can turn back to, I have myself that I can start building something again from scratch. Of course, no one would, no one should ever feel like they have no one in their life to talk to. It's not
Sure.
right. It's never
Sure.
true, by the way. But
That's a good piece of advice as well to keep in mind. I think it
Right,
can feel
right.
that way sometimes.
Oh, you
Yeah.
do, right? You can't just turn to that person and talk about negativity. Anyhow, so at that point, I felt a little bit of that, and I understand. All right, this intangible assets, it was so compelling. So what can I do with this? No one can take it away. No one can devalue. No one can discredit. Then many things happened, and I joined GLOBIS. And at first, I was an admissions advisor, so really true to my passion that I would help any professionals from walks of life to understand how they can grow through business education. So when GLOBIS had that plan to open multiple international branches, I thought it was a perfect fit of my background. That I had built quite a few companies in combination of my passion that I want people to increase these assets and discover their hidden potential.
Did you volunteer to launch the hub, or?
It was a while ago. So let me rethink. The thing was, the way we approached this project, it was slightly before COVID-19 period. So the project was very big, focusing on a few of well-performing market that we would try to, penetrate and then grow more exponentially. So Thailand was, definitely one of the leads, and I'm from Thailand. So of course, in one way, I was an obvious candidate, but on one hand, I also had that experience, which later on kind of like naturally became, all right, this is the right project for me to do. So of course, I volunteered for it at the end. But the original idea might be more about like the connections. Someone who knows really well about the local market, which is not true already after I went to the Philippines, because at that time I did not really know much. Never did business in the country, so that's a different story. So so I felt like I could combine what I'm good at to what I strongly believe in, also based on my personal experience. What brought me to today, overcoming all the adversities. So felt pretty great.
It felt great.
It felt great. You understand why you have to do it, why you are the person who has to do it, and then the rest is just business skills to understand more tangible goals and then take actions. Right. So
GLOBIS Thailand is quite successful these days.
Define success.
I mean, I think it's been doing well, right?
Right. I think we have
Still
a
growing,
very definitely we have a very driven and a close knit community. I think GLOBIS attracts those who feel some drive within their heart that they want to make change, but there is just that one thing that they're missing in the whole link, and they chose GLOBIS to be part of that platform, to channel their energy. So in that sense, I think we're successful to be there on ground in person to connect these people back to GLOBIS. And the hub campuses ideas is really about the community, that how will we offer the platforms to those who can become visionary leaders. And it's definitely pretty hard to do if you're going to be 100% remote online all the time. And this is really, I think it depends on the people approaches. I know that there are a lot of guys that do things 100% remotely, but perhaps the choice or the ability to choose is pretty attractive.
Sure.
As in certain part of your life. So the hub campuses are there so that we can support those on ground, build a local community, but at the same time they can also connect with global community of GLOBIS through
Right.
online learning experience and
Right.
things like that. And I think you need both depending on the objective, the different stages in your life,
Yeah.
or just the kibung is what's in English.
Oh, I have no idea.
Depend on your mood sometimes.
Yeah. Vibes.
Yeah, vibes.
Depends on the vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very trendy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's me.
Yeah.
Something that you mentioned too that I think is really compelling and is an important thing for people to keep in mind, I think, is so you mentioned community with the hubs and building the hubs. So a big part of that is like building a community and giving people a sense of community. And in the beginning of our conversation, when you talked about starting your restaurant here in Japan, the first thing that you mentioned to me about it was less about selling food and drinks, but it was more about giving people a sense of community.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's really nice because we also talked about how you decided after a while you felt like it was time to move on from the restaurant industry and do new things. And so launching a hub campus in Thailand is obviously quite different than starting a restaurant in Tokyo. Different industries, different jobs altogether, but you were still able to take skills that you learned as a restaurateur and apply them to leading an international team at GLOBIS.
Right.
So I think it's important for a lot of people too. Like likewise for me, I used to be a cook. So I used to work in the restaurant industry as a chef. But there are still a lot of skills that I learned in the kitchen. I mean, obviously, yeah. So I mean, obviously I'm not like cooking here at GLOBIS, but there's a lot of discipline, you know, a lot of, I would say it's more like philosophical.
Right.
But I feel that connection too with you because for you, building the restaurant was really more about building a community.
I see where you go. All right.
Yeah.
Right,
so I think it's important for people to keep in mind too, maybe if they feel stuck in their career or they know that they need to make a change, they want to make a change, but they might be scared because it's like, I've wasted my life up until this point, or like I have to start from scratch. But there are always things that you can take from your past experiences.
Between the restaurant and the GLOBIS, I had a few different ventures. For HR solution, recruitment, as I mentioned. But we were talk about transferable skills. There, it's really up to your point of view. It's really up to your perspective.
Absolutely.
How you see your career and the values you contribute. And I do not want to sound too idealistic.
Yeah, sure.
At the same time, I don't want to sound too pragmatic or too realistic either. I understand that there are definitely days that you wake up on Monday morning and you feel like, what the heck am I doing in my life? Right. Or like I'm just doing this job that has no significance, no one cares. I don't know why I'm doing that. So there are definitely those days, and a lot of us maybe not in the right environment, not in the right organization to allow us to feel any different from there. So definitely understand, but you have your feeling is totally under your control. I think this is something that I definitely want to put my foot down, that no one can make you feel the way you feel but yourself. And about the purpose why I do what I do, is my career more than a job, and is it meaningful? It's really the perspective that you understand why you're doing what you're doing. And the transferable, no work requires. So I see all the job requires both, art and what's the other side? Math or science?
Yeah. I know
art
what
and
you
logic.
mean. Yeah, art and logic, exactly. Creativity and logic.
Creativity and logic. So what are the transferable skills, out of those, aspects? Definitely there are a lot of things that we learn every day, we can, utilize in the future every day. And in fact, in my team where we are as an admission advisor, sit down with professionals to understand, about their career. Even if you do the least significant thing that you feel in your job, there's always butterfly effects.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
always creates values. It always something that you grow, you learn through. So back to the original question. Not not every situation would 100% allow you to feel the way that you want to feel.
Right.
Understand where you can control it, and sometimes you have to remove yourself from certain kind of environment to feel right.
Right.
But again, you are the one who decide how you want to feel. So skills
Absolutely.
is it's just gonna come naturally, if
Yeah.
you're confident, if you understand why you do what you do.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think saying yes to opportunities as well. You know what I mean? If an opportunity arises, I think it's important to jump on it. Like you said, you had volunteered to launch the hubs, but if you had stayed quiet,
Right.
your career could have gone in a completely different trajectory.
Yeah, a little bit about taking opportunities. This is
Sure.
also like, I think it's a huge dilemma in a lot of people's life. My dad has this saying that you can't even get lucky if you don't take action for it. You're not even gonna win a lottery
Right.
if you don't,
If you don't
buy.
do the lottery.
Right. So I think one of the small criteria is to try something new. Every day I think it's very easy. I think if we continue to just stay stagnant or happy with status quo, you can. It's very illogical to expect different results from the same
Absolutely.
things that you do. So doing new things a little bit, and then new opportunity might come, and then you just continue to connect the dots.
Right.
Going forward, and it's not always about like I'm gonna quit the job and open the company right now.
Right.
Perhaps not, but like, do you meet new people during the weekend? Do you read different books? Do you also study about different industries?
Right.
And that might open a different opportunities, triggers
Absolutely.
new realizations.
It's really inspiring. It's like writing your own story, I think too, you had mentioned like about sometimes we all lay in bed at Monday and hit snooze and kind of wonder what we're doing with our lives. But you have to keep going. You have to keep saying yes to opportunities. You have to buy the metaphorical lottery ticket in order to hit the lottery. And a big thing that we focus on here at GLOBIS is, of course, as we know, is this Japanese concept of Kokorozashi.
Right.
Which for people listening or watching, they might not be aware. It's a Japanese term that essentially boils down to your personal mission. So we kind of like to say, I've heard other people around the GLOBIS community saying it's what gets you out of bed in the morning. So it's like what motivates you to get out of bed on Monday when you feel like you really don't want to. So it's a tradition here on the GLOBIS Stories podcast to ask all of our guests what their Kokorozashi is.
Right.
So would you like to share that with us all?
Right. So actually, your questions allowed me to mention a few things that I felt very passionate and very driven by to do. I graduated from GLOBIS University, and during the program we had, it wasn't only a philosophical, there was a framework and processes to define it and things like that. And Kokorozashi isn't always something about like a clear, tangible output. Like I would like to open a bakery shop as a kokorozashi. It's actually a process, and maybe rather than the what, the how, or the values that you provide can be like your kokorozashi. So for me, I don't really have a particular what in terms of like it has to be this kind of company, this kind of product, this kind of solution. But my kokorozashi is definitely to be that leader who can make people feel so happy getting out of bed on Monday.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love that.
To come to work. And that requires tons of skills, tons of passion. And what affects people happiness to work, organization, you name it. Uncontrollable factors, controllable factors, many things. So I mentioned a little bit about resource allocation. I think that is also one that I truly passionate about. I think there's no limitation on how people have 24 hours. People might have a little bit less and more. Capital is not always about that, for example.
Right.
But it's also about really really pass on that drive and have Kokorozashi to foster other people Kokorozashi at the same time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right. So I don't know. You could make me. I could go work in like a fast food chain
Sure.
right now, and I'll be okay. I'll be
awesome.
really okay. Right.
That's
'cause,
awesome.
yeah.
I think especially in a business context, the best leaders are really like facilitators, to allow people, to allow their team to do their best work. Like everyone needs a cheerleader. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Or sometimes just the general.
Yeah, general. Yeah.
You have to, I mean, we know that there are different kind of leaderships,
yeah.
different hats
Yeah.
that you have to wear. But
You would be a good chef, I think.
Are we talking about like Gordon Ramsay style?
I think most chefs tend to go more towards the general direction.
Right. Yeah, and being supportive, being inspiring, but also empower your staff, and you can't approach it just like good intention.
Yeah.
I'm here for you. That's so great. It only takes you so far. So
Sure.
you also need to understand strategy. You need to understand finance. You have to also be creative, think outside the box, especially today's business world where things changes really speedily. So I think that kind of leadership is really what I want to thrive for, to make
Awesome.
everybody's career
Right on.
happy Monday morning.
Yeah, everyone has a happy Monday morning.
Happy Monday morning.
That's a perfect Kokorozashi, I think. Okay, so I mean, wrapping up, especially being so close with student recruitment, if anyone is watching or listening that's interested in checking out more about GLOBIS, do you have anything you want to plug or anything you would encourage anybody to do to learn more about GLOBIS?
Definitely. So going back to doing new things every day, taking small steps, because GLOBIS learning methods is very different from what other schools or other business schools out there offer. Try something small, starting from coming to some special events that we invite professionals to talk, but also we offer a few trial classes that you can attend without any additional charge, that you can experience and see a little bit different sides of you. Also, maybe make some connection with like-minded people who are also wondering what's next in life. Why am I here? Let's just go with the flow and learn something new. So definitely try from something small, but just don't be stagnant, and Google GLOBIS University.
Yeah,
Quick event to see some of our available schedules.
Yeah. Figure out how to get out of bed on Monday.
Right, definitely.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on our first guest on the GLOBIS Stories podcast.
It's really, really my honor, and thank you very much for having me, Tanner.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.